Hello guys, welcome to my channel. In this video, I will show you how to expose your AWS Lambda functions using AWS API Gateway. For this video, I will be writing the Lambda in Python. The Lambda function will just return a static list of products for example purpose. In this video, it will just be a static list. It will not be fetching from any database or updating the database. In the upcoming videos, we'll be adding a database and updating and reading from the database. But the purpose of this video is to show you how you can expose your Lambda functions through API Gateway, which is very easy. So let's get started. So first you will have to log into your AWS console. Then you can search for Lambda here. Once you reach this page, you can click on create a function. Here you can use a blueprint, so choose this option. Then you can since we are going to be using Python, you can click on this drop down and choose hello world function Python. So give your function a name. So since I'll be returning a list of products, so I can just give it the name of products microservice. Then Python 3.7 is fine. Actually, you can't change it as well. Architecture is also fine, and execution role, we can keep it this one. Create a new role with basic Lambda permissions, and we can use this boilerplate code and then create a function. So we'll wait for the function to be created. So once the function is created, you will get something like this, and you will get an editor here. Here is where you can write whatever logic you want. So as I said earlier, in this video I will be returning a list of products. First we can just remove all of it, and then we can write. So our product list will be, so I am creating a response body variable, and inside it I will have product list, which will be an array, and inside an array we will have the product object. So each product object will have a product ID and a product name. So this is the first product in our product list. Similarly, we'll add two more products. Change the IDs to 2 and 3, and I am using toothpaste brands here. For example, Pepsodent, Sensodyne. So this is the response body, and we can simply, so since this is just a static list that we are going to return, we can simply return it from here. So our response, so I can create a response variable. So the response that we are going to return, it has to be a format which API Gateway understands. So since this Lambda function will be invoked by API Gateway, we will have to read the event, this event variable that you see here. This event variable will be passed on to us by API Gateway. So we'll have to read the event in a manner in which API Gateway sends us, and also when we are returning returning our response, it has to be in a manner which API Gateway understands. So in our response we should have status code. So I'm giving status code 200 and a body, and body has to be a string, but our requirement is to return a JSON, so we can just do JSON dumps and then pass on the response body. So this status code that we mention here is what we will actually see in Postman once we once we deploy our API gateway and test it. So here finally we can return the response. And also when we very soon when we will be creating the API gateway, we will be adding one path which will be /products, and inside that path we will have multiple methods. We will have get method, post method, and so on. For this video we'll just limit ourselves to get and post. So we will first have to extract the method from this event variable that we have here. So we can do that by doing event square brackets HTTP method, and then we can write our logic based on this method. So if we can do if method double equals get, then we will be returning this response. Else if method double equals post, we can just return something, since according to REST if you have a post method, it should ideally be creating an entity. So we can just give a response body of something like message product added successfully. Okay, and you can also keep the status code here, the status code that you want to send in response. So ideally in post, the status code should be 201. 201 stands for created, 200 stands for okay. So, and here we can replace it by status code. So I think this function looks good. And also just for since we will not be creating anything in this post when the method is post, so just for our debugging purpose and to check whether our code is working properly or not, we can just print something, and I'll show you where whenever we are printing anything or logging anything from AWS Lambda functions, where to see it. So I'll be showing that as well. So we can just do JSON dumps of the event body. Ideally in a post request we send some payload, and that payload we will be getting in the event. Inside event there will be a field called body. Inside this dict there will be a field called body, where we will have the payload, where we can find the payload that the client has sent us. We can remove this print statement. I think this looks fine. We can go ahead and deploy it. We can click on deploy here. So once this is deployed, you can go to the test tab, and so event JSON. So here ideally it should have, so since we are accessing, what are we accessing here? We are accessing HT method, we are accessing body. Anything else that we are accessing? No. So when you are creating your event, it should have HTTP method field, and I'll for the first test case, let me test the get scenario. And if the method is get, we will not be accessing the body field. So I think this should be fine. So let's click on test here, and you can see the execution results. As you can see, the function is working properly and we are getting the expected response. So now let's try to test the post scenario, and if we are posting something, we will have to send the payload, which we can send in body field. So we are going to add a product. So the fields here should be product ID for now if we click on test and see the execution details, it says status code 201 and body is product added successfully. So even this test case is running fine. Whatever code we have written is working fine. So now let's go to the next part of the video, where we will be creating the API gateway and linking it to the Lambda function that we just created. So once again, go back to your homepage, AWS console homepage, and then search API gateway here. Click on this option, and here you can scroll down to this option, REST API, which not the private one, this one. You can click on build. So AWS will give you an example API gateway Swagger JSON. So you can just click on import here. Okay, keep this regional. So click on import here. So once you have this, you can go ahead and delete everything, and we will be creating our custom path and the methods on that path. So you can just click here and then click delete API. So enter the name of the API. Sorry, delete the resource and delete this method as well. And now we will create our resource. So we'll do create resource, and it will be products, create resource, and inside this resource we can have two methods. The first one will be get, and the other one will be post. So in the get method, here is where you link your API endpoint to your Lambda function. So as you can see, integration type is Lambda function. So you just need to choose the Lambda function option here. Use Lambda proxy integration, you need to check mark this. So what this means is, whatever you send to the API gateway, the payload that you send, everything will be proxied onto your Lambda function. Our Lambda region is AP South 1, and here you can just search for your Lambda function name and it will pop up. So I gave the name of my Lambda function as products microservice. Just click on this and click on save. So here it will say that we are going to give API gateway the permission to invoke our Lambda, which is fine, and you can just click OK here. Similarly, go to the post method, same, use Lambda functions, Lambda function integration type, Lambda proxy integration, again choose the same function. So if you want, you can have separate Lambda functions for each of your methods, but since for this video I just chose to go with one function and show you how you can extract various fields that you receive from API gateway. So let's click on save. It's going to show this one again, so that's fine. Click on OK. So once you have created all your endpoints, you can go ahead and click on actions and click on deploy API. So before deploying, you need to choose a stage. So just if there is no stage, it will ask you to create a new stage. Give your stage a name. Just deployment description, you can give something that will help you identify your deployment. So in this deployment I added the products endpoint, so you can just write added products. So once this is deployed, you will get a invoke URL. So this is the URL on which you can send your requests. So you can copy this URL, open Postman. So once you are in Postman, you can just do create a new tab, and first let's test the get endpoint. So we'll paste the URL that we just copied, and we can add /products because this is what we added here. If you see products, so we added products, and now if I hit send, I am getting the list of products that we returned from our Lambda function. So if you go, let me create a duplicate tab, go search for Lambda, choose my Lambda function, and if you see here, we are returning exactly this list. So our get endpoint is working fine. Let's test the post endpoint as well, and here let's send some JSON payload. So we can just copy this one, paste it here, modify this to 4 and close up. And now if we click on send, we are getting a 201 response with the message that we added here. So our post scenario is also working fine. So the last thing that I want to show you is this print statement. Whatever you are logging from your Lambda functions, how do you see it? So you can just click on the monitor tab here, and there will be a logs option here. So you can just click on this link. It will take you to Cloudwatch. So here if you see, okay, so this is the logs of our most recent invocation, and if you see, we sent this request body, right? And the same can be seen here, product ID 4, product name close up. That is exactly what we sent from here. So I think this was it. This was a very quick tutorial on how you can expose your AWS Lambda functions using AWS API Gateway. In the next videos, I will be showing you how to, I'll connect a DynamoDB to the Lambda, and we can make this use case more practical. So instead of a static list, we can fetch the list from our DynamoDB table, and in the post method we can actually insert a product into our DynamoDB table. And yes, that will be the second video, and going further, I'll also show you how you can do authentication and authorization using AWS API Gateway. So yeah, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. If this video helped you, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Bye bye.